You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network. Now the largest new media platform on the web and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California. Presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies.
This is AFTERBUZZ TV's The Americans After Show.
We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show.
It's AFTERBUZZ TV's The Americans After Show.
Welcome to the Americans AFTERBUZZ After Show. We're here once again. As always, I'm Joe Braswell. I'm joined by the lovely Jen Golden.
Hello.
And I'm also joined by the not-so-lovely Joe Sanfelippo.
Nice to be here with you guys.
And I'm also joined, we are all happy to be joined by the great Costa Ronin, who plays Oleg Burov.
What's up, guys? Hi.
There he is. It's great that you're here. We've been teasing the fact that you were going to come in, and you're here sitting right next to me, and I'm very happy.
Me too.
Yeah, we know you're happy. We'll talk about that later. What we're gonna do is do what we normally do, which is just talk about the episode, which is a fantastic episode tonight, and then you can chime in if you want and give your thoughts and opinions, and then we will also get to know you a little bit more and find out where you come from and what's it like to work on this fantastic show, and tell me what the hell Oleg is up to.
Perfect, because I'm still under the impression of the episode I just watched. So you guys take all the time you want. I'll just.
And what are the odds?
We
finally get you in studio, and you're not in the episode.
The one episode I'm not on.
I was waiting. I was like, it's got to be coming. No, not at all.
Well, I will just jump to right now. I mean, you said that we're talking off mic, and you're saying how when you signed on, it was only supposed to be a couple of episodes, and then it was a couple more, and now you're in 12 out of 13, which is fantastic.
Right.
So congratulations.
Thank you so
much. We're happy
much
to have you. So I'm dying to ask. Of those 12 of episode 12 that you did, if you make it or not, and we're going to see him in season 3. We got picked up for season 3. We don't know if Oleg survives.
Well, I read somewhere that Oleg goes on a journey.
What kind of journey is that?
I don't know. I read another interview.
We'll get into that. No, we'll get into that. The journey.
The journey.
Yes.
That's
His
it.
character
Self-discovery.
His character has an arc, and
Okay.
you said we don't know. You don't know if the audience will like where it's going or what happens with him. I feel like he's bad.
You think he's bad?
Is Oleg a bad man?
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Oleg.
That'd be hot, though, wouldn't it?
I think Oleg...
That's what I'm here for. Just comedic
do
relief.
you have a crush on
It's not me.
We're Team Oleg.
One half of this side of the table does have a crush, but it is not my side.
Yes, and one half of the side of this table...
Also does.
Yeah. Yes.
Oleg will be lucky to get out with his life.
So great episode tonight, man. Martial Eagle. This episode was the Iran-Contra sort of Contra camp infiltration episode, which was consulted on,
and he got a story credit. Yeah, Oliver North
story by
consulted.
credit.
Yeah.
I guess it's like that's what you get. You don't get consulted by. You get a story by.
Yeah.
But Ollie North. When we talked about Ollie North leading up to this, the whole Iran Contra thing and the Contra training camps and all that good stuff.
You want to talk about that is straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
If you got the guy who was at the center of the maelstrom.
Yeah.
And he is and he's consulting on the show, helping
Very
you with
accurate.
the story. Unbelievable.
So I mean, is Ollie North? I mean, I don't know. He's not. This is what we talked about before. But our guy, who I'm drawing a blank on right now, our Navy SEAL guy, Joe Flippo, help me out.
Larrick.
I'm
the names person.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Jen. Larrick is not an Oliver North type character, right? Like,
I think you could say he's a derivative to some degree because I mean he is the special forces guy that becomes a liaison.
Sure.
Oliver North I would say is about 3 or 4 steps above Larrick in the actual structure historically. Does that seem right to you?
I mean, he's an expert on American history, I'm sure.
I'm sure they.
You're the history guy.
I'm sure they discussed this on the set.
You were introduced to me as the history guy. You should know.
He said
History
it.
guy.
He said it. So I would imagine you guys have some discussion on set, which is something I want to get into a little bit later on because it's so fascinating to me. Your life is fascinating. I mean, you grew up. You
Are we doing this now?
You want to do this now?
No.
No, we should do this later.
I want to know what you were introduced. Okay, so you were the history guy. You were what?
The cool guy.
What am I?
The cool girl.
Okay.
That's right.
I'll take
He
it.
just made me a nerd, is what he did. That's
Yeah.
essentially how this all took out.
There's
You
always
read
going to be
books.
one.
You're the hot girl. I'm the
Only
cool
you.
guy. Joe's the history guy.
Okay, cool.
Nice to be here.
That's what
Nice
we
to
do.
see you.
Happy
So-
to do my part.
This episode opens with them infiltrating this camp, which was, and we saw last episode, them really sort of getting getting repatriotized, if you will, sort of like really their resolve they're being strengthened by the news of the death of the boys in the submarine, which they are to believe that they caused that, that their intel caused the bad propeller, which caused the death of these boys, which we know as the audience isn't true, but they think is true, and they begin to see the toll of all of their spy work, and it's not just dead drops and faceless people. There's actual things the things they do actually affect the world and individuals in the world. And I think that was a real realization they had last episode.
And their own people.
And their own people.
And it
Right.
caused Philip to get very, very mad at a beautiful Camaro.
Yes, and
You're
before
still
that,
upset about that. He
I
was
am,
mad
I
at
am.
the car.
But that's sort of we talked about sort of the theme of this season, if you will, whereas now we can get to story of what they do, what they actually do as spies. The spy work that they actually do has dramatic consequences. We saw this with poor the couple
Leanne and
Leanne
Emmett.
and thank you.
And here
Emmett
for
and
names.
help me out with Leanne and Emmett earlier.
Yeah.
We saw
AKA
them.
Paul, yeah.
We saw how Claudia was very, very concerned about losing people in the field and losing them. We see the consequence they have when they have to sort of take these lives along the way, and the toll it's taking on the innocent
Right.
people that take.
It's really
like
taking
that
a toll.
the poor kid in the ARPANET code room who wandered in at the wrong time, and now we see this operation, which is a standard sort of intel operation. Really, there's a high body count there.
And it seems like Phil is really, this is really, really wearing Phil out. And I don't know, it seems like the show is kind of drawing a distinction between people you have to kill with your hands versus people you kill with your gun.
Right.
You get a little bit of distance, you get a little bit of, but it seems like Phil has had to do some really, really down and dirty in the last couple of weeks, and it's really wearing on him. And I think that kid, being so young and being such a fresh-faced, young kid, and when he takes him to the ground, he doesn't try to kill him right away. He doesn't try to choke him out. He doesn't try to break his neck. He doesn't try to put a knife in him. Shh, just be quiet.
Yeah.
Just shut the hell up. Please, don't make me kill you, kind of a thing.
It's the third fresh-faced kid we've seen him have to take out this season. In the premiere episode, the poor cook, the busboy.
Oh, yeah.
He got it. And then we had the computer guy. He had to get it in the trash can. And then this guy, that's got to take its toll. It's something that is the byproduct of this kind of espionage, and I imagine of all kinds of espionage, but specifically this Cold War stuff that we're dealing with here.
It's collateral damage.
So when you watch this episode, are you watching these in real time? Have you seen them all? Obviously you shot them all, but are you watching them, like sitting down and watching them like we are as viewers, all cut together for the first time, or have you seen them yet?
I have not seen them yet.
Oh,
no.
great.
It's a first-hand experience. And you know what? I wouldn't want to watch him beforehand. Sitting there and watching it with you guys was quite an experience.
Right.
We talked the whole time.
Very,
Yeah.
guys, I just reached out. You guys are just making notes and taking bets and, ordering pizza. So good.
The dancing girls will be here in half an
I
hour.
was doing my nails.
Perfect. I'm here just in the right time. But you know what? It comes down to, I guess, the discussion you guys had earlier. It's all about. It's not about the kid. It's not about the woman. It's not about the child. It's about who is on your side and who is on the other side.
Right.
That moment when Philip was restraining that kid in the camp right now, he was trying to pacify him. He wanted to give him another chance. But at the end of the day, it's either him.
Oh,
or the
absolutely.
other guy.
Yeah.
It's always either
Right.
him or the other guy. And that's the beautiful thing about the show is that it's not just about the good guys and the bad guys. It's
Everybody's
about the
gray.
toll. Everybody's gray, and it's
Yeah.
about the toll that it takes on a human being, on a human
Absolutely.
conscious. And it was a beautiful scene there where they are in church and the pastor team is talking, and the camera goes to Philip, and it's about choices.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you could see, and Matthew did such an incredible job. Like all
he's
through
the
this
king of
season,
acting.
but also this app, I was just able to sit back and just watch, and all those layers, all those choices that him as an actor made, but also Philip as as a character had to make in his career.
Yeah.
Every single action that he takes is a choice. And as people, we pay for those choices one way or another. Sooner or later, we got to pay for everything that we do. And it's incredible to see the toll that this career path and this spy game is taking on the characters.
It's quite amazing. Go ahead.
I think ultimately that's the true strength of the show is that there is no. We said this last season. I've said it this season. There's no like. There's a sense we all have that. Well, you're a spy. You can do this. Or you're a fighter pilot. You can do this. Whatever your job is, we have this idea that you can handle anything. And I love that this show, created by an ex-CIA, goes. You know what? That's not true. That is not true at all. This takes a toll. And like you said just a minute ago, you said it's either you or me when we're talking about that kid and obviously the truck driver and every situation they find themselves in. And it seems like Philip is adding this step, this thing in between. Like intellectually, he has to know it's either you or me, but he's adding in this like, please don't make me do this step because it's wearing on him so deeply. And anyway, it's so brilliantly done.
Well, I do want to get into Philip. I want to start with Philip here because as we're on him because where we see him at the beginning, we see him taking it back from last episode where we saw him sort of like, okay, we have a job to do, going in with true resolve actually to do this job, actually taking the time to not take out the truck driver, like when Elizabeth wanted to do it, of course, as usual, and Philip's like, no, we don't have to do this. But going in to do the job and then it going horribly wrong for the guy, and then the toll that takes on him. We saw him have a full-blown breakdown. I'm like, I remember typing like, Philip's having a bit of a breakdown. Then a little later, I'm like, oh no, Philip's having a full-blown meltdown.
It's happening.
Yeah,
this is all happening.
But that was a really that's something that I think we sort of needed to see with this show because we have a lot of like last season it's kind of fun with the wigs and the spying around and there's some
they were
some
a little
stakes.
bit harder last season. This season they were a little bit more Mr. and Mrs. Smith last season. This season they're people.
And the stakes were just as high.
Right.
But I think this season they did a great job of really ramping up the emotional stakes as well as the operational stakes. So when you see them taking these people out, like we watch spy movies all the time. James Bond, he's killing 50 people, no big deal.
Yeah, he doesn't think twice.
Here these guys are taking people out, and it's we see the toll that it takes. And I don't know. I mean,
which is why you can't root for one side or the other because everybody's people.
Right. I mean, so when Philip, when they went to the church, when Paige took them to church, and they're all sitting there in the line, sort of doing that thing, and you see the look on Philip's face. I mean, what were you? What were you thinking there, Jen? Did you think that? I mean, that's when I knew that like something was going to go horribly wrong, but I didn't think it would end up where it ended up.
He just seemed like a zombie at that point.
Yeah.
Like he lost all of himself.
Angry.
Yeah.
I feel like he was just very angry. That pan where Paige was just blissfully happy, and Elizabeth was kind of like, all right, and Henry's like half asleep or whatever it is, but Philip's just pissed.
Well, now this is something I want to actually, Costa, I want to ask you about because I mean we have this impression, and that Russia at this time was an atheist state. There was no religion, right? Religion was not accepted, and so to me it's interesting because if I look at it through that lens, then Philip is essentially watching his daughter, right? He's come here and he's created this life, and his daughter is embracing what he's been taught is the opiate of the masses. It is designed and contrived to control you, to make you believe things that are not true, to make you a sheep in this capitalist mill. And I mean that's what I took away from his face. But I mean, how real is that? How real is that expectation that in the 80s there really was no religion in Russia, that atheism was really a dominant force?
There was religion, but it was the state per se. The official version was that there was no religion, and there was, it was all about following the Soviet doctrine rather than following the Bible. And there's a scene in this app where Elizabeth and Paige, and Elizabeth is saying to Paige, "You've got it so easy. I never had childhood, and you've got everything." And that in itself, in my opinion, captures exactly what that look that Philip had in his eyes. It's about, I can't believe you're just giving everything away. I had to work so hard. I never had a childhood. I got plucked out of that society into this life where I have to kill people for living, for something when I was 18, when I was a kid. I never had a chance to love somebody. I never had a chance to make my own decisions. You have that choice. And you are giving away that freedom of choice to somebody else. You are falling into path of following somebody, and you are relieving yourself of that choice. You are letting somebody else make that choice.
Yeah.
So
and that was an amazing scene.
I think that for me, it was an amazing scene. I agree, but I think that the key here, though, is that remember, Philip wasn't that guy. That was Elizabeth, the person you described who's pissed about this whole thing is Elizabeth. Philip was like, "Hey, let her go to church. What's the big deal?"
Right.
So I mean, this wasn't Philip. So that look in his face was not necessarily. This was Elizabeth's position. Like Elizabeth has always been like, "This is what they do." She's already becoming. This is what this country does. It pacifies them and da da da. And Philip's like, you know what? What's the big deal? But after Philip was having his own crisis of conscience. Philip was having his own existential meltdown. So I think the fact that he has gone through what he's gone through, having taken so many lives, and to sit there and listen to the pastor talk about all of this stuff, it was maddening to him. I don't think it had anything to do with where he comes from a Cold War communist standpoint. It was where he was going through personally.
Let me ask you a question about that, because
that's my opinion there.
I think it has everything to do with it, because just in what you said just a moment ago, it is a fundamental difference in your view of religion. We see faith as a strength. That's something we celebrate.
And that's what Paige was saying.
Yeah, but I'm not arguing that.
What Costa said a minute ago is that viewing religion as you're giving up your freedom, you're giving up your strength to follow someone else. Right. You're giving it away. Right. So it's a sign of weakness from his point of view. So I mean, imagine that your daughter is embracing the weakest link in this society. Does that seem right?
Absolutely.
No, that's interesting to me.
Okay, I totally agree with that. But my point is, from a character standpoint, like as a statement, what you're saying, I agree is absolutely true. But from a very specific character standpoint, if you're talking about Elizabeth, she's right on board with that. Philip has not always been this way. Philip, I think this is new for Philip. Today, in this episode, we see Philip having a personal crisis of conscience, and then in other words, I don't think this was coming from some deep like this is what this country does. I think it was coming from a personal place, and his anger towards the church and towards Paige for embracing the church and towards the Bible had to do with his own personal crisis of conscience, which is he somewhat had some minor resolution towards the end of the scene. I mean, at the end of the show. I'm not discounting anything you're saying, and then we can go on and about this. So we can have a separate discussion about Cold War era Russian versus American religion. But I think that from a character standpoint, I think it's really important to note that Philip didn't really care. Philip was like, "What's the big deal? Let them have their little funny thing."
Yeah, I think he's just pissed at his situation. And he's killing people. He's got to be in this country. He's now sitting in a church in this country. His daughter is all about this.
I got to interject. I think we're discounting somewhat, and I agree. Okay. I don't want to beat this to death the entire time. But he did in the house when he's going through the Bible, he's tearing it apart page by page.
Yes.
You would rather give this to Jesus than give this to me.
Right.
And respect to this guy, this thing that they made up. Yeah. You'd rather give it to that than to your mother.
Personal meltdown.
Well, I say, but then at the end of the episode, he leaves Martha at the house, and he goes to the church to kill the pastor.
No, not kill.
I think he went in there with gloves on.
I think he was going to kill him. I think the pastor misinterpreted the situation.
Okay, well,
I think the pastor got out of that.
Maybe.
But Joe, that's personal. That has nothing to do with his like.
Yes, he's having a meltdown.
It's nothing to do with like I'm doing this for Mother Russia. This was like personal. Like this is I don't know. What do you think?
But you see, the lives that these characters live, the world that they live in, there is a very, very fine line, if there is a line at all, between personal and professional.
Right.
What they do has overtaken their lives, and it's very, very difficult for them to make that distinction. Okay, this is what I do for myself as a man versus this is what I do for myself as a Soviet spy.
Right.
So that conversation that Philip had with Paige about respect, you respect him, but you won't respect us for the sacrifice that we've done, for the choice that we've given you. In my mind, it all comes down to choice. It all comes down to choice, and this episode is where it kind of came on its head, where Philip had to. It sunk in. It sunk in that now he's bordering that line. He's bordering that line where it's all about his personal choices, and all those personal demons are starting to catch up with him.
Sure. And I also think that was, I mean, I 100% agree with what you're saying. And I think that it was sort of beautifully, articulated and visually articulated in every step that Philip made. Every time we saw Philip, you didn't know which way he was going to go. Like when Clark went to see Martha, and I'll just
he was going to kill Martha.
Joe, I know you're stewing over there. Joe Flippo was right.
Well, I'm not stewing.
You're right.
I'm not. Swear to God, I'm not.
We'll leave it at that.
We did not mention the $600.
We'll get there.
Okay.
But I'm making a point about I mean, like when back to the choice thing. Like when he went in with Martha, like we saw it, we did not know. I felt like, what's Clark gonna do? Is Clark gonna beat her? Is he gonna take out where he's coming from a personal standpoint? Because Philip is having a meltdown.
Right.
Clark Philip as Clark has a job to do. But when he sat down there and he's like, I know. I think it was like, I didn't want to be home, and she's like, you are at home. I mean, you know what I mean. He's like sort of slipping. He's drinking. He's slipping. He's cracking his knuckles. I mean, we don't know
she was a dead person.
We have no idea what this is going to do. But then he had to make the choice to sort of like go off of his personal meltdown he's having and go back on mission and play the tape and do the things that he was going to do to sort of to keep this mission going.
Right.
And it feels like every step of the way we see Philip, he has to make a choice about which way he's going to go and how he's going to play the thing and how he's navigating through this whole thing. That's all. But that's the choice. But no, $600, Joe, it would go.
Well, no, we didn't mention. That's all. We didn't mention this. We did the math. It would be $1,600 today. So if your kid were to go and give $1,600 to a church as opposed to $600, we just did the math. It was worth mentioning. To give you 2014 money. That was all I was trying to say. So, but as far as what you said about Phil and Martha, absolutely right.
Yeah.
He goes in there, and it was like almost like a trick the show played on all of us. Like we were like, oh, Martha's dead.
Well,
he was cracking his knuckles and he was saying how the world is so ugly. I'm like, oh, sorry, Martha. It's your time.
We just saw this progressive spiral for Philip, right? So like we saw him mad at the church. The next time we see him, he's ripping out the Bible and screaming at Paige. And then when a very that's his. By the way, Emmys all around for Matthew Reese. This is the Emmy episode for Matthew Reese. Like, I mean, come on.
And the writing is so good.
I mean, he like destroyed it. He's
apparently Ollie North can write a show. Who knew?
No, it's story by.
Story by.
Yeah, story.
But yeah, it was the page is torn, and then we see him with the Martha. We see him on the bench, and the poor guy's like, "Buddy,
I
you
thought
okay?"
he was going to hit Paige.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot there, and then finally, we see him with that wonderful scene with the preacher, which I do want to talk about, as you eloquently talked about before. But for me, my interpretation of that was he went in to do harm to this guy, whether it was kill him or beat him up or whatever. He went in to do harm. He kept stepping closer and closer, and like, do you believe this? Essentially, do you believe what you're saying? And the preacher, to his credit, backed him down. He backed him down with his conviction.
That was impressive.
Now, whether or not you believe in God or don't believe in God or believe whatever you believe, the preacher believed it. So he backed it up with his conviction. I think that Philip got right into his eyes, a well-trained counterintelligence spy, and knew that he was telling the truth. So at that weird moment, it became about like choices. Like, am I going to beat this guy up or kill this guy, or do I believe this guy believes what he's saying? If I believe this guy's not a shyster, if he's not out to get my daughter, then that's one thing. But that level above that was when he told him, there's salvation. There's basically a way
grace
out.
And forgiveness for
grace
everyone.
And forgiveness for everyone, and that backed him away.
Yeah.
And when he walked out, to me, in my interpretation, he was relieved. Because this is a guy who had a bad day. How many times have we said this?
There was hope.
Bad day at the office.
That moment was all about hope.
Yeah.
So
he came this close, and that very line that there is forgiveness for everyone, there was this glimpse of hope.
That was his own confession, basically.
Exactly.
That's what made him turn away and reconsider. And as he turns around on the way out, there's a glistening tear.
Yeah, great acting.
So good.
How did you interpret that, Joe? Differently.
I
do tell.
I have nothing different. I think you got that 100% right. I think that the pastor, to me it was like the Total Recall moment from back in the day. You remember? This is all happening in your head, and that one little trickle of sweat, and he blows out. So I think if the preacher had given one indication that he was shady, that he was in it for the money, that he wasn't who he said he was.
If he begged.
Right, or anything would have been if he'd been wrong. If he'd just given the wrong impression to Philip, and you're right, Philip's highly trained. I think he'd have just killed him. I think that'd have been it. But I think if the preacher believed it, then it doesn't. I don't think it hits as hard that his daughter would believe it too. It doesn't necessarily change. I don't think it changes Philip's mind about any of this stuff. But I think it certainly saved the preacher's life.
That was one of my favorite scenes of this season.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of incredible scene work and incredible, two-person scenes we've had in this series. Season 1 had a bunch of great stuff with Matthew Reese and Kerry Russell, but then that scene was fantastic because the preacher was fantastic. I mean, he did not blink or back down one bit. Anyway, I can't say enough about it. So that happened. That was cool. So I want to back up, and so we have some resolution here about they're getting closer. Back to the mission, they're getting closer to finding out about this mysterious stealth technology. They're still throughout this, getting what they need to do. Philip, at the end of the day, does get Martha to get to in position to get the intel that he needs to find out more about this stealth thing. And meanwhile, Elizabeth is doing her thing along the way, going to AA, befriending this person who works at Northrop, and getting closer to find out about the stealth the stealth technology.
It's kind of an interesting thing. We got two parallel things going on. It seemed like Clark for a second was really going to kill Martha because of all the stress that Phil was under, and I really thought for a second that Elizabeth was going to AA for herself.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought she just needed a friend, really.
But it's interesting because it just kind of reminds the rest of us, like, okay, they do have moments, but they are professionals and they're going to keep their ish together.
It was a great reveal at the end. Like, where do you work? Assembly line. Where?
Right.
I know.
Northrop.
I heard assembly line. I'm like, dude, she's an AA. There's no way around it.
Yeah. So I just want to flip it to the other side, as we often do here. We've got the Russian side, the KGB side. Not much, unfortunately, not much from the Residentura today. Nothing from the love of my life, Nina. You lucky son of a bitch, you. I hate your guts.
Hey, what about the scene between Lev and Agent God?
Yeah,
that
was a fantastic
How
scene.
phenomenal was that scene?
Yes,
phenomenal.
That was a great scene.
It felt like Heat, didn't it? It felt like Heat back in the day. It felt like Al Pacino and back in the day, sitting at that diner. I will take you down. Anyway,
which one?
But now that we've met, I won't hesitate.
I won't hesitate.
I won't hesitate to take you down. Great scene. That was very, very. That's a good call. Very, very Heat-like. So these two guys who meeting each other, sort of saying saying everything without saying anything, and Arcadie's just sort of like.
I loved his response.
It's a pleasure to thank you. Good day. I've always wanted
Gave
to meet
him
you.
nothing.
Gave him nothing.
And he smiled too. He was just like, not afraid. Gotta go.
So that was our Residentura, FBI thing that didn't happen in either office,
Right.
But because now we have Stan, who is now, on his own very specific mission. He's gone above everyone's head, gone straight to the
Project Have Blue, Project Harvey.
Yeah, he's
interviewing engineers.
Well, he went the last episode. He went in and said, "Look, I know what happened here. I'm your guy." He basically told them stuff is going down. I know I know what's happening here. I'm your guy. Please let me get to the bottom of this and cut out the bureaucracy. I'm your best hope here. I'm Stan, and they bought it. So they gave Stan all these clearances, and now Stan is on the case. And I'll tell you what, he's getting to the bottom of some shit. Stan.
He actually is.
He is. He's calling guys in. He's
scary, right?
It's scary. Stan is top cop, best. You don't want a Stan doing his job at the highest level, because Stan with some clearance, with security clearance, is a dangerous man.
But what is he trying to accomplish?
Joe,
he's giving me anxiety with his choices in general.
Okay. So Joe and I had this conversation.
I need him to be a little tougher.
Okay, Joe and I had this conversation.
Break it down for me.
It's just what I just said. Stan went to the guy and said,
I got that.
I'm the guy. Now he did that because he's trying to break this wide open, and he's and maybe trying to save Nina. He feels like if he can do this, he can save Nina, right? So that's what you're saying,
right?
But your thing is saying he's doing this for Nina. And it's not.
I'm not saying for Nina.
Because he's Stan. He wants to take down the bad guys.
We happen to have Costa Ronin here. So you did not
tell us.
You didn't give the order for Stan to do this, right? This is Stan's. This is his deal, isn't it?
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Oh, that's unfair.
Look, that's just how it is, right?
Handcuffed. If you can't tell us.
Listen, if you knew why he's doing it, would you be asking me that question?
Yeah, that's a very good point. No. So I'm not supposed to know.
This is why we're speculating about that.
Exactly. Well, whatever the motives are, he's getting to something here because.
I want to know why Oleg wants the records on him from Stan.
Yeah.
Tell us why.
Well, actually, was that like a red herring? Was that just a way to get Stan in?
Yeah, you got to get him used to it. You got to put a finger in first. You got to used to it. You got to get him. You got to get him. You got to get him used to it.
What do you have to do?
No, you got to get him used to giving you something. That's what he's saying.
How do you do that?
Shh. Terrible example, but you got to you're getting him used to giving you something. It's a small thing at first. It's not a big deal. It's just a little something, and then it's going to grow and grow and grow.
Well, I agree, but the direct question is: was that actual intel that the Residentura needed, or was it just a way to get Stan on the take?
It is about it's about if you ask for too much, then the stakes are way too high, and there is this high possibility of Stan saying, you know what, no, I'm gonna stick with what I'm doing right now. I'm gonna stick with FBI. I'm gonna stick with my country. By baiting and by giving out little bits of information first, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, you kind of get that person to get sucked in, get that person to give out more and more information to the point where, you know what, now you've given us this much. What are you gonna do?
Well, then the other side is
you've got two choices now. If you flip, we're gonna say to everybody what you've done.
That's it. Now you're out. You're dangling. You're out. You're Wile E. Coyote out over the cliff. And if you look down, you realize there's no ground.
Now this is something we were debating early on. It's clear now, but when this was unfolding, we couldn't tell whether storytelling was we couldn't tell if this was Oleg going rogue and doing his own thing, or if this was part of a larger operation, or this is something that
I knew.
And Jen, of course, JTJ was very clear in saying they're all in on it, including Nina, in which they all were. But was this Oleg's idea? Is this Katie's idea? Like, whose idea was this to go after Stan in this manner? Was this? Do you know? I mean, do you know whose idea it was? Was it Oleg's?
It was a combined effort. It's not something that, look, if Oleg would have taken it upon himself to just go and do what he did, then too many factors had to align.
Right.
Too many factors had to align, and then it wouldn't be episode 5, 6 wouldn't be about, you know, the deal in the port with Agent Beam, and at the same time as exfiltration is happening somewhere else. It would be just about Oleg being on his own.
Yeah.
You know, it is a combined effort, and it's amazing when you. It's one of those shows which you have to watch over and over and over again to get all the little points, because you watch it once and you miss things, and then you kind of come to the next episode and you start to speculate and try to remember, try to think, and you're like, hang on a second, didn't they say? And you go back and you watch it again, and then all the pieces of the puzzle start to fall into one shape. So. It was a combined effort. I'm gonna tell you.
That scene at the ports was the scene that turned us all. That's the scene that that someone in this room was like, "Oh, maybe Oleg's hot," and I was like, "Stop that, Joe."
That's my bad. I apologize if I made you uncomfortable.
It was that, and it impressed me too, because there's that moment when he's like, when Oleg's like, "I'm training counterintelligence," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, go Oleg," and then sure enough, there he was at the port.
That was actually the turning point where up until that time Oleg was, you know, it was the guy who on screen wasn't taken seriously.
Right.
That was the first turning point where he actually stood up and said to Arcady, you know what? Hang on a second. I know what I'm talking about. I'm actually quite good at this.
Yeah.
And even though, you know, in that scene Arcady didn't believe him, as we find out later he didn't, you know, it all went ahead.
Right.
But that was the first turning point where that relationship between Arcady and Oleg has gone to a different level.
Yes, because and all of us too, because I think that we all were like, when Oleg said that, I was like, Oleg ain't good, no counterintelligence. Oleg's gonna get caught. He's, you know,
who said that?
Maybe Joe, but
wasn't
just like
maybe Joe Flippo. He sounded exactly like that.
I gotta say, it was. I like the way you guys have done it too, because I thought that if you did get elevated, I thought it would be something that you'd have called to Dad, and Dad would have called up and somehow bumped you. But I like the way it's gone through, because you did it on your own merits. Oleg's the character did it on his merit. He said, you know, I've got a good plan. We're going to run this better than you would have thought to run this. And so you've elevated, the character's elevated because of his own merits, which I think makes it so much better.
But that's also a credit to the Jays and the writing team that they've put together. Yes. It's to be able to have that vision and to be able to sit down and think, okay, well, how can we take this story to a level which nobody expects and take it there.
The Jays being the show creators, Joel Weisberg.
Right, Joel and Joel,
Joel and Joe Weisberg.
Right. We're a lot of Jays here,
A lot of
too,
Jays.
so.
Jen, Joe. All right, anyway. Will we ever get to see, will we know who specifically Oleg's, you know, father and family members are? Will that something be revealed?
I don't know. You just gotta wait and see.
Come on, Ronin.
There's an arc coming.
Yes.
So
for the last 40 minutes, I've been over your shoulder reading your notes. So I know exactly the questions that are coming up.
Are they any good?
No, they're terrible. But no. Okay, so we've gone through that. So just back to Stan. Really quick on Stan. Project Harvey. Project Harvey. The Have Blue program. Project Harvey is obviously referencing the Jimmy Stewart movie The Rabbit, who's gone. That's kind of cute. I like that.
Can we talk about Stan's wife?
Yes, like, you know,
Sandra.
Stan, which we talked about this 5 episodes ago, how this was happening.
Like, why weren't they getting divorced?
Well, I don't know.
It's 1981. It's not.
I know, but I bring this up every time. They're just like coexisting, and no one's talking about it. And finally, they talked about it.
Well, they have a family, but she made it very clear. And I thought in a very adult way to say
she's
it.
like, I am going to see about having an affair.
Yeah, she's talking about
I will
this
be
guy.
back.
Are you gonna have an affair? She's like, maybe. It's like, are you gonna leave me? Nope.
I'm waiting for you to leave me.
I like the way she said it. It's a small world. I'm not going to be the kooky wife that left. I'm not going to make this easy for you, Stan.
Exactly, because you won't leave me. She called him out too.
Yeah, totally.
So you tell me you're not having an affair.
Oh,
Stan's like, yeah,
affair. What would you call it, Mr. Counterintelligence Genius? You didn't see this coming,
right?
Yes.
And we've been saying that. We're like, for somebody that's so smart, he's got a lot of crap going on.
Yeah, well, the irony of it all is like anything with a woman, anything that can't be standing up, Stan is absolutely confused by. He cannot keep track of anyone who can't use a urinal. Well, he is a disaster.
That's a nice way of putting it.
I just feel like you can see where Stan has this thing where it's feel like his brain is working wherever it's working. Full tilt boogie to figure these things out at work. When he's home, he just switches off. Like when he's home, he's like a zombie. Even in that moment when Dr. Ruth is playing, he's kind of like, turn that off, and he's like, whoa.
You know what's funny?
Such an
what are you
moment.
doing?
I gotta say that's one of those moments when, because we watch with the subtitles, so we don't miss anything. It's one of those wonderful moments where subtitles make a scene so much creepier. Because if you watch that with subtitles, you read everything Dr. Ruth was saying, and you're like, oh, that's deeper than I thought it was.
Dr. Ruth, not sexy.
No, very clinical.
Super clinical.
That's not. Yeah. Anyway, so Stan's on the case, but the most important thing here, we'll wrap up there, and we'll get into Costa, is that Stan seems to be getting closer and closer to what happened to Leanne and Emmett.
Yes.
So when we see a little
Alexandria
bit of that,
meeting, Virginia,
and,
all these different engineers.
And he even met with their contact, their guy, who's like, I would never betray my country.
Oh, and his line in response?
Yes, we're like, liar,
No, and he said nobody ever thinks they will.
Yeah.
Oh, Fred, not Frank. Pardon me, Fred.
Which was the double,
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. That's why I'm saying there's more to this than we figured out so far.
We'll soon find out. The episode was wonderful as usual. We talked a lot about the show being everyone talks a lot of show about. There's no secret the show's about relationships and show's about marriage. It's like one of the best shows about marriage on television, and the backdrop is the spy world, if you will.
Right.
We also talk a lot about the fact that you have these two Russian spies on an American show as your protagonists, and we are rooting for them essentially. Because they are set at the center of the show, we are essentially rooting for them. But as Americans, as patriots, we're rooting for the Russians, the bad guys, or are they bad? They're not bad. It's a really great way of sort of letting us look from a distance at the Cold War and what was going on there, in terms of spies, because we're watching the FBI and we're like, well, are they the good guys? And, well, no one's the good guys. This is just a story unfolding, everyone doing their job.
Right.
And the question I have is, how do you view that? Because we grew up here, in America, and so we have our own sense of American history, and we have our own view of the Cold War, and some of us are older than others. But you grew up in Russia and spent time in New Zealand and England and other places.
Right. I'm Russian. Don't forget.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
How do you view the show? Do you view the show the same way we did with distance to the Cold War? Or are you like good guys and bad guys, or spies, or?
Well, no, this is not what the show. The beauty about the show is not it's about good guys or bad guys, and the reason you're rooting for Philip and Elizabeth is not because they are Russians or non-Americans. It's because you're rooting for people.
Yes.
You're not rooting for the Russian spies. You're rooting for people.
Right.
And one of the wonderful things about the show is that it's yes, we've spoken about everybody being gray, not black, not white, but it's also about, we've spoken about the toll, but it's also about the audience being able to relate to every single character on that show.
Sure.
Every choices that the characters make, they're all human choices. It's not about gadgets. It's not about super spies. It's not about everybody, can do whatever the hell they want and just move on with their lives. No, it's taking a toll. Right. It's all about choices. Everything that you do has got consequences attached to it, and this is what the show is about. And this is why you're rooting for Philip and Elizabeth. And this is why this show is so exciting. Is that you find yourself on the, so to speak, wrong side of the fence.
Yeah.
And everybody's puzzled by the fact that, hang on a second, let me check myself. Am I just am I really rooting for the wrong side or right side? Or how does it work? Coming from Russia, it's the same thing. I find myself rooting for people. I find myself connect with the stories and with the human emotion and the heart of those characters rather than what they do.
Right. Right, which is fascinating. I mean, I'll let you, but we find ourselves all the time sort of in this position. The main thing that we forget all the time, because there's such separation, is that Philip and Elizabeth are on the same side as the Residentura. There's such separation there that we forget that they're all connected. You know, which is something you know.
Well, you know, to me, it's really interesting. Like you said, good writing. Well, I've said it for a long time, but you said the same thing. It's great writing because everything feels like it had to go this way. And I've said that for a long time. Great writing in television, if you feel like the characters made huge, unmotivated mistakes, it was bad writing. But if you feel like they got to a place almost like they didn't have a choice, and then you become invested because then they're just like everybody else. They're just trying to do the best they can. And it's such good stuff. But I want to ask you personally, because I can never say the town. You told me Kaliningrad?
Kaliningrad.
Kaliningrad.
Yeah.
Which is so fascinating to me. You left when you were 18, right?
Right.
Okay, so you said you went from Kaliningrad, I'm going to butcher that every time I say it, to New Zealand, to Australia.
Right.
And then you did a one-man show in Australia, right?
Right.
Are you going to bring the one-man show back? Or are we going to get to see that out here in LA?
What was it about?
I got to talk to the writer, producer, get them to, make that happen. It's a terrific show, and I really hope that we get an opportunity to bring it over here. And it's about actually a youth experiencing the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Oh, wow.
It's a Polish young man who was in Berlin at the time of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and what he saw and what he experienced, and it's deep stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to me just looking this up here at the wall, just looking at the Americans, just the hammer and sickle.
Right.
For us is an absolute. It's a symbol of evil. Right. We were raised, and it's so interesting to me to sit across from you and realize that you were raised. That is a totally different symbol for you. Right. I mean, it's the same exact thing. It's red. It's a hammer and a sickle. But for you, it has such completely different meaning.
Right.
And you said it's about a Polish kid at the fall of the Berlin Wall. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, the entire world is crumbling around this kid, right?
Right.
Such
it was you know what? It was a fascinating time to be alive.
Yeah.
I'll bet.
It was a fascinating time to be alive.
The time
of change is the best time to be alive.
I don't think anybody here can truly conceive of it. I really don't think we can wrap our heads around it. I mean, up is down, left is right. Mom and dad are gone. I mean, the government that you grew up with, it's gone.
Right. Well, yeah, you basically, everything's normal, and then the following day, everything's completely different. In your passport, it says you're born in a country that no longer exists.
Right.
I mean, how many people can experience that? That's just...
It's inconceivable.
That's crazy.
Well,
yeah.
How does that? I want to get into, and I think that's your background's fascinating and fantastic. I want to get into how that sort of informs you as an actor, and how you sort of made that transition into sort of into the arts, and then ultimately made your way to the States to audition for this local television show.
Right.
So how does it? I mean, obviously how did you get interested in the arts itself?
I don't think you choose that. I think that's something that chooses you.
Right.
Really. I mean, it's if it makes sense.
Sure, no, it does.
My first gig when I was 5. My first acting role was I was playing a grandmother at the age of 5, and
I hear you were brilliant.
Well, you know what? Yeah, the jury's still out on that one. But you know what always fascinated me about entertainment and about storytelling, because I don't look at myself as an actor. I look at myself as a storyteller, and I think a lot of actors look at themselves that way. It really comes down to being able to create a character, especially in the theater world. You create that character, you rehearse it for like 4 weeks, and then you live that life for 6-8 weeks, and you live that life. You create that world. You create that parallel universe, and it's not just about that discussion we had off mic earlier about Inside Out, and
yeah, absolutely.
It's about creating that character and living that character's life, not just acting and pretending to be that character. Is actually going to all those dark places and living that character's life and making all those choices to the point where you're on set or you're on the stage, and every movement, every idiosyncrasy is the choice of your character, not you as an actor, and that fascinates me. always have, and I guess always will.
It's like acting without strings. You're not a marionette. You're not a puppet. You're living from inside, and you're creating this as you go. I mean, it's such a powerful way to do it.
So talk to us about your audition, getting to audition for the Joe. How did you come to the role of Oleg? How did that come to? You know, you've done some television work overseas, obviously some stage work. Like how did you? Was it just was it an open call? Was it an agent? Did they find you? Like how did this happen?
It was a very nerve-wracking experience. But you know, like the casting brief went out, and I put a self-tape for the role, and then Daniel Sackheim was, I think, in LA at that stage, and so that was a couple of weeks, like a week or so later. He met with me at Amblin at DreamWorks, and then a few days after that, I think Annette was in town, and her and I met and had a chemistry read, and then I was at a table read for a different project when I got a call from my agent saying, "You got the part," and that was just like.
Because at this point, the show, we've seen season 1. We know what a brilliant show it is. We know, so that's just that. You'd have to be over the moon, you know.
It was a great show in its first season, and what fascinated me about the show is that there's a lot of shows out there, films and TV, that these are the bad guys, these are the good guys. Russians are usually bad. Great. You know where that story is gonna go. You know how everybody's gonna die, especially if you are Russian. In this show, you connect with people, and I remember I had this conversation with Daniel Sackheim at the audition. He asked me that question: "What is it that attracts you to this show?" And I said to him straight out, I said, "Look, this is exactly what attracts me to that show. Is that the fact that this show is about people. It's about human stories. Everything else is a premise. The guns, the fights, the stunts, the car chases, the era that it's set in, all that is a premise. It's about people. And this is what connects us as an audience. This is what connected me as an actor to this show, and this is what connected me as an actor to the part of Oleg. And I'm just thrilled to be part of this journey."
Yeah.
Wait, speaking of people, though, and I know you don't like to give spoilers, you might ask him for this answer. Is Nina really in danger by your family?
You tell me, what do you think?
Yes.
You didn't even have to think about it.
Sorry,
What's up with that?
I want to get into some character stuff a little bit because Oleg's a very interesting character because he's that sort of enigmatic character who is like, is he bad? Is he good? He likes the Western stuff? He even likes Marvin Gaye and then and the churches But he's always been after Nina. He manages to seduce Nina. But that last episode we saw him, there was a bit of sinister sort of like, my way or the highway, sort of like, don't refuse me, Nina. Are we going to see that explored more? I mean, is this? I feel like this isn't going to be all peaches and cream for Nina and Oleg. I mean, where's this going? Can you give us a hint as to what we're going to see?
It's never peaches and cream about this show. The thing is that, you know what? It's a duality of what they have to do professionally and being human beings, being a man and a woman. Yeah. Like in any work environment, you connect with people. You see a beautiful woman and see a beautiful woman, and you're attracted to women. But at the same time, on the show, in that world, nothing is what it seems, and you cannot show what you think. And it's always a very clear distinction about what you have to do. I mean, we can have a great time, go out for dinner, and then one of us is gonna die tomorrow. Yeah. It's very simple, and well, it's simple, but it's not simple, if you know what I mean. It's that cloud that's always hanging over those characters. With Oleg and Nina, it's exactly the same thing. There was a scene in ARPANET where Oleg is teaching Nina how to pass the polygraph test.
Oh yeah.
And in that scene, going into that experience, Oleg knew a lot about Nina, and he knew that he's giving her, by teaching her how to pass that polygraph test, he's giving her that extra armor. He's giving her something that she did not have before, and that is something that will, not really create another super spy, but it will give her that edge that right now she doesn't have.
And was that the moment?
Isn't she also then in debt to you? because you helped her out and you're watching over her and she needs you now, kind of like she needed Stan before?
You got to remember that what you see on screen is the beats of the story. The characters still live off screen.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we don't see.
So a lot of it, one of the beautiful things about this show is because it's so intelligent, it lets the audience make their own assumptions and think for those characters. What is going to happen next? And then figure out whether or not they were right. Because the Resident Tour is still living and going on.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that scene, in that lie detector scene, that was clearly a seduction of Nina. Nina was very seduced in that scene. But was that Oleg's goal to? I mean, was it his goal to train her, or was it his goal to seduce her? It was definitely his goal to train her. And he wanted to train her because he does love this woman. Okay. Oh, that's
he loves her.
Oh, look at that.
Well, look,
that's a hot take.
I don't know. Am I the first one to say it? I don't know.
No,
is that a spoiler? You wanted a spoiler? There you go.
Yes.
But the reality is that he was still doing his job. He still was trying to get into her psychic, and when at the end he is putting his arms around her. Yes, it was sexual, but at the same time, it was playing with the concept of close your eyes and look at me. It was very, very important for him to be not just in her mind, but in his heart, and that was part of his job.
Right. Now that's we have about 3 minutes left.
Well, that was to me what was so interesting about the whole idea is can an oligarch's son be with a woman who is, I mean, he's essentially running at this point. I mean, you know that when she leaves Oleg, she's going to go have sex with Stan. I mean, does that become a thing for you guys? Is it layered on now?
Are you asking me if we're enjoying that?
No. But I mean, like, is it layered on the relationship? I mean, socially, can that happen at this time?
Absolutely. Why not? This is the world that they live in.
I guess
do it not because it's their personal choice. They do it because that's something they have to do professionally.
Let me clarify, because I'm not saying it right. That's something. It seems like it can happen on the ground in the U.S. It's part of the mission.
Right.
But can that go home? Could they take that home?
That relationship.
I don't see. I don't see why not. Everything is possible. Everything is possible.
He's not going to give it up. He's not going to give it up at all.
No, but that's okay. So just
she's going to die
before we wrap up. So we do unfortunately have to wrap up. I do want to know, a lot of exposure. What's it been like for you? Being on a hit TV show like this and exposure wise and everything else. I mean, how's it been for you? Role wise and offer wise and other things coming down, or just people recognizing you in the street. I mean, is that stuff happening for you yet, or is it pretty?
My life hasn't really changed.
Okay.
I get to hang out with cool guys like you,
yes,
and talk about things that I love.
You're welcome.
That's there you go. That's the beautiful part about it. But otherwise, it's all the same.
Well, we love you on the show, and we really, really appreciate you coming in. And the show's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Looking very much forward to seeing where this goes, and and we know that the one episode that you aren't in is the episode.
What are the odds?
What are the odds? Talk about.
But now we know he's in all of the rest.
Yes,
so that's good.
We know. Where can we find Twitter? On Twitter, where can we find you?
Costa Ronin.
Costa Ronin?
That's my name.
At Costa Ronin.
At Costa
Check him out on Twitter, at Costa Ronin. You can watch him on The Americans as well. JTJ, where can we find you?
At Jen the Jew on Twitter and Instagram. JeniferGolden.com is my website, and Jenifer Golden on Facebook.
Joe Flippo.
You can find me on the Twitters at Joe Flippo, JoeFlippo, and my website is josephsanflippo.com.
We did not do predictions, but we'll do them next time. You can find me, Joe Braswell, on Twitter and Instagram at Joe K. Braswell. It's Joe K. Braswell, and hearing a bunch of other shows. Thank you so much for downloading on iTunes and rating us and listening on YouTube and watching us and streaming us live. Thanks again to Costa Ronin for joining us, and we'll see you next week on the Americans AfterBuzz After Show.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.